Let me just check this one more time here. Okay, I'm making sure I'm not leaving anybody out. All right.
Sitting on a yoga ball may not have been my finest idea.
Stay still. So welcome everybody. I am excited to have you here and super excited to have Sister Ann with us. We met Sister Ann probably 15 or 16 years ago in Cleveland, and she turned up at just the right time when we needed her. She had a Reiki and energy healing clinic, the Sophia Center, at Ursuline College, and I found it when I was wanting to take some more Reiki classes. And so she did my Reiki level 2, and then some other energy stuff that we did. But then she was there for us when I was pregnant, and we were given a horrible prenatal diagnosis and told that our son probably would not live till birth. And so for me, I did whatever I could to keep myself calm during that time. And what I kind of think is that God puts the things in my path before I need them, almost like a preview. And I thought that that was the purpose of knowing Sister Ann. But what I didn't know is that when I really needed her was when John got sick right after Catherine was born. And that was just, for our family, a crazy, scary time. But through the work and the energy work, he was able to get some relief. There was one time, I don't know if you remember this, that 2 of the sisters wheeled him out in a wheelchair to the car because he was under such pain. And it was, I was pushing her in a stroller, trying to get her out. But it was just such a profound time. And there's been other times when I've been back in Cleveland, and I always try to go see Sister Ann, because she truly is just such a blessing and such a gift. And I'm so happy that you agreed to be on here. She thought she was just talking to me. And then I said, oh, whoops, we have a few friends.
Whoops.
So thank you. I am going to see if I can. I'm going to make you the host, sister. And then they can see you. And I'm just adjusting a couple things here. And okay. So Kathy, I'm going to mute your audio, I think, here. It's thinking.
Yeah, Magda's not muted either, I don't think.
It's not. So if you guys can mute yourselves, because somehow I think I unmuted and muted and I don't know what happened. But mute yourselves and that will help us out here. And oops, now David becomes the speaker. Okay. Let me find. So I just wanted to, as we've been in this lockdown, we've been having some special guests come in and talk with our yoga studio community and share. I think it's a time where people can learn a lot beyond just yoga, about energy and healing and all of that. So can you, Sister Ann, just start out telling us a little bit about your background, your journey, how you came to study all of this?
Okay, certainly. And thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you all for being here. This is wonderful. I was, as you know, I'm a sister, been in the community for 60 years. I forget how many, 60, maybe 3. Anyway, I started out as a high school teacher and did a lot of high school retreats. I also was involved in a place, it's in New Jersey. It's a retreat center for religious women from all over the United States and Canada, primarily. And I went there first for myself, and then I've gone back, and I still go back to help out and do programs or be supportive. And so one of the days I was there, this was back in 1992, there was another sister coming in from Canada that needed a ride from the airport. I was free, so I went. And in the car, I didn't know anything about energy work. I was focused on teenagers and said on her way there, she got a Reiki treatment. And just being polite, I was out driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, which is not my favorite place to drive. So I'm really focused, but I want to be polite at the same time. So I said, well, what is that? And she said something, and I don't know what she really said. And then, so I thought, okay, I got it that they're on a table and they're doing something. So I said, how is that different than massage? And she said, well, when I get a massage, I chill out. When I get Reiki, I get energized. And I thought, well, that makes sense. Some days I need to chill out. Some days I need energy. And so I dropped her off. They have several facilities. And so we weren't staying in the same facility. So I dropped her off where she was staying. And I would have forgotten that conversation, except when she got out of the car, she handed me a brochure. She had stopped in New York and gotten a Reiki treatment, and it was from a sister in New York. And so I said, thank you, put it in my purse, forgot about it, came home. 6 months later, I'm cleaning off the top of my desk, which also needs to be cleaned off now, but won't happen today. And there at the bottom of this was this brochure, and there was just some part inside of me, that place, I guess I would call it intuition. I call it where the divine said, check this out. And it was bizarre because it made no sense to me. And I had no feeling for it, but I did. I called this person in New York and she said, well, if you come, I'll give you a Reiki treatment or you can learn Reiki 1. I have no clue why I pursued it, but I did. But what happened was there's another sister in our community who's done a lot of energy work. She does basically craniosacral work. And she said, well, there's a couple people in Cleveland that are doing Reiki. And I said, really? So I should go get a treatment before I go to New York to find out what this is. And I remember lying on the table saying, what am I doing in this woman's house? I'm over here in Lakewood, lying on her table. And why am I doing this? And what? And I kept thinking, relax, so you can feel this. But that's how it went. I went in and out of my head doing a squirrely thing. And so when I got off the table, I really didn't know what I had experienced. But she said there was going to be a training like 3 weeks later in Cleveland. They were bringing, nobody in Cleveland could teach it at that time. They were bringing someone in. And I said to her, I have to be in that class. I'll make it short. So anyhow, I ended up in that class. And Paul Mitchell, he was one of Takata's students, was the teacher. Wonderful human being, wonderful human being. That was Reiki 1. It was done in an office in Lakewood. And then he came back the next February, and anyone that was in that class that wanted to take Reiki 2, he taught. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted to go on and that I was called to, I don't know what the words are, but I knew I was going to teach it or should teach it. And at that point, those that went to Takata's lineage were charging $10,000 for Reiki 3, and I knew that was out of the question at that point in time. So I just put it in my God box and said, if I'm supposed to do it, something will happen. And a few years later, it was 95, I took Reiki 3. There was a woman in North Ridgeville, which is a suburb of Cleveland, who studied with William Rand. And she was a Reiki master and she could teach me. And so she did. I began to teach it from there on. And I thought, well, I'll just see if anybody's interested. You know, I didn't have I've never had a big plan for it. But okay, do you want me to maybe I'll try to just do this all briefly. I thought I'll put out a class, 12 people came. I was like, oh, people want this. So taught the first class, put it out again, and did it until this past year when we closed the center. We closed the building. We rebuilt the living place for the sisters, and the building we had was too big for the community to sustain. So last year I retired, but I'm 82, so physically it was time to let go of what I had been doing that way. And so people came until I retired. So and then we had a Reiki clinic that we started, and I started that was a woman who had cancer. She had liver cancer, and the doctors gave her 6 months to live. And her daughter called and said, you know, would you treat my mother? And I said, you know, of course. And of course I heard, and can you do a miracle? You know, you don't know when the miracles are coming, but they come when they come. So what happened with that was that she came and she asked if she could come and could her father come? And I said, sure, anybody that wants to. Well, I didn't expect 12 people came to that treatment. I have a big room, but that was still, I was still like shaken by it. So, I mean, God usually has to do something a little bit out of the ordinary, and then I wake up to, okay. So I said to them, what do you want to do? And they said, we don't know what Reiki is. We don't know if we like it. We don't know how to spell it. But if she wants it, we want to support her. So I had them come back 3 nights that week, and I taught the whole group. So she could have Reiki in the home. Money wouldn't be an issue. And they felt very empowered. If people are doing, some of you probably do Reiki. Okay, you feel empowered when you're doing it for somebody, or you feel help. I mean, it's a really nice bond. And so she lived 8.5 years with quality of life. She finished working, retired. She and her husband took a year off and took their Winnebago and went around the country. Some of their married kids are in other states, and they camped for a year. She lived a very productive, full life. And I don't know how much Reiki she got. And out of that, though, I saw that God was showing me to start a clinic, because people would say to me when they had cancer, how often should I come? And I would say like 3 times a week or every day when you're going through the challenge of it or going through chemo. But then I don't want to add a fee to it. So we didn't charge at the clinic. We suggested a donation of $10, but we didn't check to see if people gave it. But it was enough to keep the lights on, do the laundry, and I could hire somebody to oversee the clinic so that I could continue teaching and pursue other energies. So that's kind of how it started. And we had it right up until we had to close the doors last year. And people are still looking for it. But I worked with Cleveland Clinic for 8 years during that time on research. I'm not a researcher and I didn't really want to do it, but Cleveland Clinic wanted to contract with an organization and my community would stand behind me. There are plenty of people in Cleveland that could have done what I did, but they didn't have an organization. They didn't want Ann Winners. They wanted Ursuline Academy to sign off on it. And so I knew I was the only one that had an institution that would sign off on it. So I was willing to do it. And we did the research, but we also got it into the clinic, and it's into all the major hospitals and hospice gathering place in Cleveland right now. So very grateful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they're offering Reiki in the clinic?
Yeah. Yeah. It's and one of the chaplains told me this past year that it's the most sought after alternative piece that they have at the clinic. The people are seeking. Because people come in knowing about it. Before, a lot of times I would get calls to go to see somebody like you expressed at the clinic. Now they can get it right in there. They have volunteers and they also have paid staff that are involved in it. Yeah. So,
wow. That's amazing.
It is. I mean, and I didn't try to make anything happen. I never had an idea like, I'm going to make sure it gets in all the hospitals. It just the way I work, I get a seed, I plant it. Oh, look at it, it's growing. Maybe I'll plant 2. I don't get it. I'm not the kind of person that says, well, now here's the big plan and I'm going to try to make that happen. I just follow the seeds. That's kind of how it's been in my life. Okay.
That's a beautiful way of thinking of it. Instead of, having to know, so often we're told you have to know the end before you begin. And
yeah.
I think a lot of people
never worked that way in my whole life. And it took me a long time to acknowledge that, because, there is, when we build a new building, you have to sit down and have a plan and know how big it's going to be. There's a real place for that. It's never been where I've been called. I've been called to nurture a seed and then plant a few more and then a few more. So, okay.
So what would you say, you've done a lot of things in addition to Reiki.
Yes.
And studied with a lot of different teachers. What would you say has been the most impactful or influences what you do the most?
Oh gosh, that's kind of a tough one, because I think you do the next right thing, the next thing that comes to you. Actually, what I made, because I had 2 master's degrees before I got into Reiki, all right? Then I took 3 weekends or something equivalent to that, and they said I can teach it. I didn't go into the classroom until I had a master's degree, so we're educators, and so I felt like, and the other piece is, you asked about energy. I didn't have any background in energy. I just had what my teachers taught me, and that was fine. But when people start coming and they had questions that weren't in what I had learned, I didn't know where to go. So I thought, so what I decided to do very early on was to study at least 101 of many other, whatever system came along that I could afford and go to. So I did therapeutic touch, craniosacral, and then there's a Warren Grossman, he has to heal, being healed by the earth. I went to all of these classes, and and they were all wonderful, and I learned something. And I wanted to fill out my background so I wasn't misleading people. And I found an energy healer in Cleveland. She didn't do Reiki. She just called energy. She just always used to say to me, and energy is energy. You know, and today I understand what she was saying. You know, you don't have to but we have to label things so we know how we're doing things. But so I used her as a supervisor. So if things came up, I went and talked to her. And then I wanted people to know that Reiki is wonderful, and it's been a big part of my path. But everything else out there that's going on is wonderful as well. And God has many different ways that people can heal. And so I did that for, I don't know how many years, until 2009. And then I went to Donna Eden's energy, the same thing. I'm just going to see what this is about and kind of see what I can learn. I went to Donna Eden's energy medicine, an introductory class, and I felt, and that voice inside said, check this out. I was like, really now? So I did, and I ended up going through her system and being certified, which is a much more extensive. It was a 4-year program, and you get, you have supervisors and so forth. With that, which is different than Reiki. Reiki is very simple. You don't need to know anatomy, physiology. With this, we did. And we learned how to test. Donna Eden is an amazing woman who can see energy, and I can't see it. But she found ways of teaching us how to get the same information she did without seeing it. And it's through energy testing, which they call applied kinesiology. That I always stumble over that word. But you use the arm, and there's other ways you can do it too, to find out where the energy blocks are, and then she would show us interventions to help people correct them. So I went through that program, and things I've done more recently, I've studied the EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. I've studied the emotion code and body code, which the basic thing behind that is that sometimes people don't heal because they're stuck with emotions from their own life, or even could be ancestral, if you believe in that, something they came in with that didn't belong to them, and to clear them. The clearing is, finding it and clearing it is a very simple technique. I'm not certified in it, but I went through the classes. I decided a few years ago, I've had enough certifications, and when you get to be 80, you can say, no more certifications. I'll study and I'll work with it. And I bought the packet where you have all the videos and so forth that can be helpful. But both of those systems are pretty easy to learn and work with. So I use whatever shows up for people today. Yeah. Okay.
It's funny is that when I moved to Cleveland, I had a copy of Donna Eden's energy medicine book that I had bought in New Jersey when I was working.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when you had, and I forget the gentleman who came and taught the energy medicine at your center.
Doug Moore. Yeah.
Yes. But then it was like these things would just show up. I would have the book and then it would appear. It was.
That's kind of how life has gone for me too. So if you talk about a resource, probably Doug has been the most significant because it's been ongoing. I went to Doug because of the energy. He was the first one that taught the energy medicine. He's a psychologist. He's a life coach, and he's a spiritual director. He's one of the people that has, for me, the whole composite of what all this life is about. And so I continue to study with him. I'm not studying energy medicine with him right now. I'm going through a class. It's called Deepening Presence. It's about living from our soul instead of from our ego, and loving our ego. I haven't talked this much in months, so my throat. That's why I have water here.
Perfect.
And I better be careful. Anyway, so I have consistently worked with Doug both personally and then in classes since that time. And he just put on, if you're looking for resources, his name is Doug, D-O-U-G, Moore, M-O-O-R-E, and he's got a website called Thrive and Awaken. And he just put on there this past a couple weeks a 30-minute Zoom program where he teaches the daily energy routine for Donna Edens. When you were asking, one of your questions was about how to keep yourself going during this time. And so the whole daily routine, which helps to balance the energies in your body. It's about 15 minutes long. And then he added a piece about the tapping. He's excellent with the tapping. I just love to watch those that are really good at it, work with people. But he does it with getting rid of the anxieties and stresses around the virus. And then he ends it with a short period of meditation. So it's quite lovely, the whole thing. But those are three things to do for ourselves during this time. Whether it's you doing yoga, or I do the daily energy routine, but yoga would probably have the same effect of balancing the energies and bringing you back into the now. And then the tapping, if you've got some anxiety, there's other ways, but that's a great way to release it. And then meditation for sure. Yeah. So Doug has probably been the most significant and consistent through this whole process. I run anything new I run by him, and he's always got wisdom and compassion and support. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Monica, your question, there's a couple questions that popped up in here. The book is Donna Eden's Energy Medicine. Looks like Davey answered that. What is Greg's last name? Greg Moore? No, Doug Moore.
Doug Moore, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a Greg Nancy. Maybe there is a Greg, we just don't know who he is yet.
Maybe Greg Braden is a good guy in the energy field of science to study today. If you don't know him, he's excellent. Yeah. Okay.
So,
all right.
When you are working with someone, how do you feel the energies? I know you were talking about Donna Eden sees it, but how do you experience it?
I experience it different ways. One of the ways, if a person's really receiving it a lot, I can feel it in my hands. There's a, how would I describe that? Well, the one woman that I had used for supervisor, her name is Laura Chapman, and she gave me a book once on Chinese medicine. It's this thick, and the print is this big, and I was like, oh Lordy, I just want the cliff notes. I just want the answer. But I asked her about the energy. So when you feel it as heat, it means it's energizing. If you feel it as cool, it means it's cleansing. And so I feel the cool. I kind of encourage people when they're finished to drink a lot of waters, nice teas, because something is releasing. You want to get that out of your body. Then there's other ways they can feel it as a vibration. There are, and I don't know. Here's the thing for me. I know it's working and it's doing what it needs to do for that person. So how it feels to me isn't always that important. Unless I feel this with the cool, then I wanted to let people know what's going on there. And with doing Donna Eden's work, I don't know if I feel the energy as much because you're working with certain points on the body, and you test the body to see if it's responding to what the interventions you're doing. So with Donna Eden's work and some of the other, it's more through the results of it that you rather than with the feel of it for me. The other thing I thought about that is when I worked with Laura Chapman, she also can see energy, like Donna Eden can see. And I worked with Laura long before Donna Eden. But she taught me, she said, everybody can get the information. Some people are kinesthetic, some people are visual, some people see it. Some people are auditory, they hear it. She said, find out what your strength is and just go with it and don't worry about how other people get it. And my strength is having my hands on the body. I know that. So I don't worry that I can't, because if I couldn't see it, and Laura's the guru, if I can't do it like she does it, then I wouldn't do it. And she taught me, don't pay any attention to that. And other teachers have taught me that too. Don't pay any attention to how other people get it. Find out how you get it and then work with that. And that's my strength. I like to have my hands on the body. And I know to stay here or move. I just know it. I can't tell you what it feels like. It's like, okay, energy's not moving here. Let's go over here. Oh, it's moving here. The body knows, and if I get quiet and don't try to control it, my intuition will kick in and show me where to go. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, there was a time when I was pregnant with her and I was at the Reiki clinic and, you know, I had my big 7-8 month pregnancy belly and I had this feeling on my belly and I thought that's really odd that they're staying on my belly so long. And so I like peeked, like, this is a little awkward that they're still on my belly. Like it felt like 20 minutes later and they were nowhere near my belly.
Mm-hmm. Ah. So the energy, yeah, the energy knows what to do and where to go. And it also knows where you can take it in. What they said about Usui, the one, he wasn't the founder, he's the one that named it and brought it, God used him to bring it in. They said he would say a prayer, but he would put his hands at his third eye. He would ask for guidance and then he would follow his hands. Now, most people starting out with Reiki aren't that free to follow their hands. But a lot of people, you know, and then if you don't know where to go, you start with the protocol, but as your hands tell you go over here, you just go. And I've done that so many times, and people say, oh, why did you go there? I fell yesterday, and they forgot to tell me about that. So you get enough feedback to know that that's the right way, just if you trust that. But normally I start out with my hands on the shoulders, and then in the head, if I don't get any other information, but then if I get information, I just move with it. But one of the other questions I really wanted to tap into, you asked about grounding. Does everybody know what grounding? Everybody, if you're yoga people, you probably all understand grounding. That's so terribly important to the whole picture. I studied with a man named Warren Grossman, and his book is called To Be Healing by the Earth. Very briefly, he was a psychologist here in Cleveland who went to Africa with his wife and contracted a parasite. And they brought him home to Cleveland Clinic. And the clinic said, I'm sorry, buddy, you're going to die. And he said, well, I don't want to die in the hospital. I want to go home and die if I'm going to die. He went home and he didn't die. He was very sick. It's so sick he couldn't actually physically walk. And he was tired of lying in bed. So he began to crawl on his hands and knees out in his backyard and just lay there all day. And he began to see the energy in the tree, the auric field of the tree. He thought he was hallucinating. He was afraid to tell his wife that because he thought she'd lock him up some other place. And anyway, he began to heal. And the power of the earth to heal us is incredible. Right now, if I feel the need in these days, I mean, and whether I feel the need or not, I go out every single day and get on the ground. And because I really reground, I really recenter there. And Donna Eaton has a wonderful technique. It's called the Brazilian toe. It's not hers. She gathered things from all over and brought it in. It's from Brazil. It's called the Brazilian toe. And somebody has to do it for you. You can't do this yourself, but anybody can do it for you. You put your fingers, you start with the middle toe, and I don't know why that is, and I don't care, but I just follow it. And you hold your thumb under that. You hold for about 3 minutes. Then you move to the fourth toe, same thing, thumb underneath. The baby toe, thumb underneath. Then you go back to the second toe. When you get to the big toe, you put both fingers on the, and it's called the Brazilian toe. And on the toes, all the meridians come off the toes. You know, you talk about meridians in yoga. I don't know, but anyway. Yes. Okay, so they're the energy pathways, and I know how to test with John Eden. I've learned how to. Hi, John. Nice to see you. Okay.
Nice to see you too.
I learned how to test with Donna Eden to see if the person is grounded. And 90% of people coming on my tables are not grounded. If they're not grounded, then they won't sustain the energy. You know, like, you know, if you didn't have your legs under you, you couldn't walk. And so if you don't have the energy in the first chakra, I'm sure you've worked with the chakras. If you don't have the energy in the first chakra, anybody that's life-threatening illness is depleted in the first chakra. Hands down, you don't even need to test anything to do that. So I go and work on, I usually relax the body by putting some hands in certain positions on the head. Then I go and I fill that first chakra before I do anything else. Because, for example, if people had to do heart work or things, grief work, they can't do it if they don't have energy in their first chakra to do it. That's kind of like, I couldn't walk if I didn't have my legs under me. So I know that. And so I just almost can tell when people are on the table. So I go right to the legs and I work on them until I get the meridians open and the energy flowing through there. Then they have something to hold that will sustain them as they do the other work of the other organs or systems that are off. So grounding is so important. And right now it's good, the best thing we can do. And when we're grounded, we aren't anxious. You know, so if somebody's anxious, they're not grounded. I mean, that's a clue for me. Oops, you've lost your grounding. You know, yeah, you can bring it back through breath work. You can bring it back through just consciousness. Going outside is one of my favorite. Hugging a tree right now. I saw an advertisement for hugging a tree for 5 minutes since we can't hug each other. That's really healthy because our bodies will begin to imitate the energy of the tree, which is doing what was created to do, and it's connected to the earth. Okay, so it will reconnect us. So hug trees. They've mocked me all these years about hugging trees, and now everybody's like out there hugging trees. Okay, so I couldn't underscore how important the grounding is for healing purposes. You can't heal. You've got the energy down there. Go ahead.
I remember when you were here, when you came to my studio and did the workshop,
Okay.
and you had worked on a lot of people throughout the day, and you said, can I just go out in the backyard? I just need to reground. And, you know, so you definitely practice what you share
I
for
try.
sure. Yes.
I do some.
What would you say, one of the questions, since we're in the South,
Mhm.
one of the things that we hear a lot, even just with yoga, is a lot of times people get pushback from their church about that it's not Christian, that it's not of God. But how would you explain that?
Okay. Yeah, depending, here's it. Some people have come to me that are just kind of trying to understand and seek out and search. And I can really usually normally work with them. There are some people who think I'm going to hell in a handbasket and the door's not open, okay? So, and there's also people who think that I sit next to Jesus on the throne. So if I pay attention to either end, I get in trouble. But here's what, my basic answer, I was trained in spiritual direction, okay? And these churches are probably Christian churches, right, that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in Galatians, it talks about to test the spirit of everything, to see if it's of God. It says if it's of God, it produces love, joy, peace, kindness. There's 12 fruits, 14 fruits of the Holy Spirit. It produces that. If it's not of God, it produces division, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So when I got involved in it, if it hadn't been through a nun, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to it. Probably thought, well, that's nice for them over there, and gone about my business. But this was a Catholic nun, so God knew I had to hear it from inside somehow to get my attention. And so when I began to pray with that, okay, William Rand, I don't know if he's one of the big Reiki people in our country who's done a lot to support Reiki and to create manuals and offer workshops. Well, when I first started doing Reiki, and I would tell you, I would get questions. I mean, the first time somebody was pregnant, no, they hadn't talked about it in my class. I didn't know. First time somebody get pacemaker. So I could call with Moran, and he was very generous with his time. Would tell me what he knew, and he always ended the conversation with, pray for guidance and follow it. And that's been, you know, it took me a while to wake up and just I don't have to call him very often anymore, hardly ever. But he's a wonderful man to talk to. So I asked God, what is this? What about this? And what God said, what I heard God saying to me was, your vision of me is way too small. You've got me in a little Catholic box, you know, that's where I grew up in a wonderful Catholic supportive family. But, you know, everything, we had rules and regulations for everything, and this is how you do it. And he said, I'm much bigger than the God that you know. Okay. that's what helped me, and that was through my own. And we all have to get it here in our hearts, you know. Okay, so so that gave me freedom to explore, and it really opened me up, and I'm way bigger than I was back when I started doing Reiki in terms of my understanding of what God's doing in the world. So for people that are Christian, that if they believe in that, I've said I've never seen Reiki do any harm. I've seen people heal. I've seen people's lives improve. One of the guys who came for a Reiki treatment right after he had heart surgery, he liked what he experienced, so he came back when he was well, took all the classes, and he was an accountant. So when people had the left brain, right brain thing going, I'd say go talk to Ed, because Ed could articulate it in both systems. And he said to me, I know this works because I'm doing my life much better. I'm treating the people in my life better. That's the work of God. I don't care what you call it. I don't know what name, you know, I don't care what name you add to it, but that's God, that's the Spirit of God working. I've never seen it do harm. I've seen it, one of the situations this was early on, one of my students just took Reiki 1. Somebody in a church called and said that her son was dying. He was in his 30s of cancer. He was very despondent. I heard you do Reiki. She said, would you come over? And she was scared, but she said, if God asked me to go, I got to go. So she went. The next morning, the mother called back and was weeping. She said, he woke up this morning and said, if this is what heaven's like, I'm no longer afraid to die. He was really afraid to die and was very despondent. That all changed, the family changed. He died a few weeks later, but they continued to do Reiki with him. That's the work of God. And so that's how I test it. That would be my main test. The second would be to pray inside like I did and listen and ask God, what is this? I don't know if you can get those folks to do that. If they're just trying to understand, you can usually, those things usually help and work. If they're really trying, if they really are very fearful, but I find that in my church too, the Catholic Church, that we've installed a lot of fear in people. And that really, I don't believe is what God wants for any of us. He wants us all, he, she, whatever name you give it. I say God, but it can be whatever name you call the divine source, higher power, whatever, is trying to let us know that we are loved deeply, completely, just as we are. And that is what should motivate us, not the fear that we're going to hell or fear that we're doing it, you know, we're out of line. So there's a lot of fear in those those communities often, and it's hard to break through that fear. But that's how it's been for me. I was a little bit. Well, my first experience was very positive and good. So, but then I thought, you know, oh my goodness. Reiki is just a Japanese word, you know, and we believe in energy and we believe in a divine source. That's what it means, okay? But sometimes those things throw people off. I don't know if I can be any more specific than that, but if there's another way, want me to talk about it? Try.
I think it's great. I think, let me see, somebody said, someone was told that she was opening herself up for the devil to enter into her being. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's never been my experience. My experience, you open yourself to love and to compassion and to forgiveness and to kindness. And that's the work of God, by whatever name you call it.
What would you say, and I don't know if you've heard of this, it seems more and more that there are some people that will do some treatments with like an ill intent. There's somebody who we've encountered who works with crystals and different things, but they sometimes are doing some other things.
I've not run into that myself. You know, I don't know, I've not run into that.
Yeah, so just always finding someone that you trust or.
Absolutely. Well, you know, that's a teaching from early on. You should feel you should feel that the teacher that you're going to or the practitioner you're going to is right for you. I always encourage people to that. You know, I like to be able to refer people, but sometimes they get calls from out of town, And I know that there's a way you can find out who the teachers are now. You just have to go online. But I said, but then talk to them and trust your own intuition around it. This doesn't feel right, don't do it. If it feels right, go for it. I definitely with that, I would just don't say go to anybody. You know, I'd like to do that, but in Cleveland, I would refer them to people that I know, that I trust. But if I can't do that, I say go online and look this up, and then kind of even use your intuition before you call them. To see which one jumps out at you, and then also then talk to them and make sure that it feels right for you in your own heart and being. Yeah.
With the different levels of Reiki,
Mhm.
how do you, like if I've done level 1 and 2. I did level 1 with a different Catholic sister. And then when we moved to Cleveland, I did level 2 with you. And I haven't found a Catholic sister doing Reiki here in Nashville to do the next one. But how do you know when you're ready to use it?
To use it, like what?
Like to practice it. Like I used to use it on her when she was little. Every night she'd go to bed with Reiki. But
If your heart's right, you can't do anything wrong.
okay.
And your heart's right, so I just do it. When I started out, I took my first class and we did it at night. No, we did it on the weekend. So I came home. I was living at a different convent, and I had friends there that I thought would let me practice on them, but they were all out, and I wanted to do it right away. So we lived next door to another convent, which is Carmelite sisters. They're cloistered, and I used to go over there for liturgy on Sundays. So I had friends there, and one of them just had I can't remember what, but her face, she was all black and blue. They had done one surgery, but she really needed they didn't do the surgery on the right thing. Anyhow, so she was all beaten up. And I thought, oh, Pat would, so I called her and I said, I just learned this, I want to practice. She'd come on over. So I went over and wouldn't you know that the Carmelites had a table? They had it because the doctors came in to examine them, they could then go out. But I didn't have a table yet. I'm like, the Carmelites have a table. Anyhow, so she's lying on a table and she just totally trusted me. The person that you're working on, it's their level of trust. And they control it as much as you do. If they're frightened and stuff, it's hard. They kind of hold against it. But anyhow, she totally trusted me. And after about 15 minutes, I thought I was going to faint. I had never fainted in my life, and I just said, Pat, I got to sit down. So anyhow, it was comedy. It was a comedy, really. So she's up and she's getting me water and something to eat. And I got up and I tried again, and I couldn't. It was just wiping me out. So at that time, they had a little Reiki circle with the people that we had studied with, and so I went to it and I told them what happened. They just laughed at me. They said you weren't grounded. And I didn't know a thing about grounding at that point. And I was so much wanted to help her that I was not really grounded. And she was so trusting of me that she was pulling it through like in gangbusters, and I couldn't handle it. It made me. So that was the first lesson I had in grounding. And so I went back then, I learned to ground, and I went back and we succeeded. But the person, because she totally trusted me and she believed in it more than I did, I think at the time, she just opened up. She was just like, yes, help me, and the energy was pouring through, and I wasn't strong enough to sustain it. So there's always fun stories on your path, because they're all teaching you something about whatever you need to learn. So that was my beginning. Yeah. Okay.
What would
What else do you have?
what do you think is the future of energy and health and healing?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting after all of this particular situation we're in is over. The fact that Cleveland Clinic is open to the energy in different modalities, and in Cleveland, the Cleveland Clinic does it, others, UH and Metro and all of them have followed suit. Well, what I found out when I was in the clinic, I knew it was going to happen because there were a lot of people on the staff there that had taken Reiki. I thought, okay, this is not going to come from the top down. This is going to come from the people in here because they're carrying the energy with them. Okay, whether or not you're putting your hands on somebody, you're carrying that frequency with you. And people can drink of it if you're open to allowing that, just because you're being in that area. So when I saw that in the clinic, there were nurses, there were people, other technicians that had taken Reiki, and I thought, okay, this is how God's going to work it here. But it was a combination. We did do all the paperwork, and they just brought their presence, and somehow one day, whoever was in charge said, okay, go ahead. And and not only that, but they paid somebody to coordinate it and so forth. So, you know, I think, you know, through all of this, some people are, some things, it's probably the things I choose to read, but they're talking about just much more natural things, ways to support yourself. And I think that we're going to, hopefully we'll incorporate more and more of that. I think we will. I think the ground is open for it. I think people are realizing sometimes what our grandmothers did and great grandmothers did works, you know, and we got into, I'm not against medicine, we need it, and they've done a phenomenal job, but they've left behind some things that can be really beneficial to most people in terms of energy and so forth. And there's so many simple things that you can do yourself to help, you know, support your systems. So I think we're in a good time for all of that to happen, and it's happening. So.
What are you studying next?
What am I studying next? Well, I told you I'm studying the deepening presence with the dog, but I've had about a year, so that I've been floundering around trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next. And I still have a space at Ursuline, but I don't have space for the clinic. I have a private room where I can see clients, and I've been doing a little bit of that, not since the epidemic, but before that. And I think that will always be part of my life. But I think the two things, two things I realized that have motivated me, is like what helps people heal, and helping people, not only doing, you know, a physical treatment, but also helping people pay attention to where they're off inside. One of the things, I've dabbled in about a dozen different things since I've been home. I buy the books and I buy the tapes and so forth, but one thing that I've dabbled in, and I love it, is heart math. Are you familiar with heart math?
I am.
Okay.
I have my little monitor right on my shelf.
Oh, you have your monitor. Okay, all right. I have one of those too. But helping people to align their heart with their head. You know, if we're in fear, we're operating out of our ego. And I don't want to put the ego down. We need that, and it's been a gift from God. But it's supposed to be in service of the heart, and it's the other way around in our society today. And so the heart's supposed to lead, and the head's supposed to follow. And when we lead with our head, not when we get up and get dressed, and we need the ego just to get dressed and be here and show up today. But when the ego goes into anxiety and fear, that's not the place to operate from, for me anymore. But what does my heart say? You know, and we've kind of covered over the heart and haven't listened to it. It breaks through. I mean, it breaks through every once in a while without me even trying. But I'm trying to pay more attention to that. And I really think there's three centers. I think there's the gut, the heart, and the head. And when they're lined up, we're true to ourselves, and then we're true to everyone else. And helping people with that is one of the things that I'm working with. And I had an experience before I got into all of this. I was doing retreats, which I love, and I think going back to retreats with the focus on some of this is probably where I'm headed. But when I was doing this, they asked me one summer back in the 70s to do a house of prayer for sisters in the summertime. So I did. And I knew speakers and in liturgies and all that, pulled it all together. And 9 of us came together for the summer. We were all teachers, so we had the summer off. And uh, so what happened, 3 people in that group had significant healings that summer. We never prayed over people for healing, never did Reiki, none of that. And so I went on a quest to find out what that was about. And it took me years before before it made sense. And what made sense was in a craniosacral therapy class. Man's name was his name? Greg, no, not Greg, Gary Peterson came to Cleveland, did a craniosacral class. I sat in it. And he had, I have one, but I don't have it, a little Doberman sphere that you can play with. It's a child's toy. So he stood up in front of class and he said that the craniosacral therapists have found 3 cranial rhythms in our body. And the first one pulsates at like 5 to 7 seconds, like this, okay. And we get up and we get dressed and we get our coffee and we get in the car and we go to work and we do a lot of things in this rhythm. You can get a lot of things accomplished, but we don't heal in that rhythm. The second rhythm, the craniosacral, is like 10 to 12 seconds. So it's like this. Goes in and comes in, goes out. And this is where people heal. That was when we sat in there and each of these rhythms has a name and everybody was saying, how do you spell that? And I wanted to get up and kiss the guy. That was it. We went from a lifestyle, because we got up at 5:20 in the morning. We went to church and we meditated and we did our liturgy. Then we were out the door by 8 o'clock, off to school. You know, in those days, you could tell where we were and what we were doing at every moment of the day. We'd come home, correct papers, plan for the next day, say a few prayers, go to bed. But we were still in this rhythm. So for 6 weeks, we were in this rhythm and people began to heal. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. So yoga puts us in that rhythm. Meditation puts us in that rhythm. When people get a Reiki treatment, they go into that rhythm. That's where they heal. The body knows how to heal. The Reiki just supports it to relax. And then the body, when this body is relaxed, it goes back into right relationship with itself. I forget, it was probably in the 90s. It was like 15 years I was trying to figure this out. What did we do that made them heal? And we simply lived a lifestyle that was slower. And maybe a lot of people will heal during this epidemic if they let go of their fear, while they're just sitting and relaxing and having time to meditate or do yoga or any of those kinds of things will bring that about. So that was a tremendous, and so helping myself and everybody else get back to that rhythm. The body will go back and do what it knows how to do for itself. So that was a huge teaching. Did I forget what the question was?
I don't know, but that's amazing. I think that there's definitely, I think that it's all these different things. Right now we're looking at, I've got this fascination with vagal nerve tone and looking at how do you tone the vagal nerve. And it seems like everything is converging to the same basic principles, whatever they're called.
Right, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yes, I did even buy something on that. Vagal nerve. I did, yeah. So whatever there's plenty of good things online right now, and whatever draws me, I explore. And the new guy that I just listened to for the first time, I've seen his name around, but I just never was drawn to it. But I was drawn to just one talk by him. His name is Andrew Harvey. And he's profound. He's absolutely profound in terms of understanding what's going on and what he believes the call is. He said that this epidemic is not just about. He used the word transfer. He talked about transformation as just coming out as a better self, being more kind, more compassionate, more loving, more just, whatever. He said this is not about that transformation. He said this is about mutation. He said God is trying to create who we bring, and maybe create's not the right word, is come through who we really are, which we are divine beings. And he said it's more going like the caterpillar to the butterfly. We have to be willing to let go of all that we've known for the new in us personally and collectively to come through, which is huge. But it spoke to my heart when I listened to it. I thought, yeah, I get that. And it's good if we come out more just and more kind and so forth. And then we take care of one another and we take care of the universe, take care of the earth. Yeah, that's what the call is that he put forth. And he did it in both a little bit of humor. He says, keep laughing while you're doing it. And, but with truth. And like one of the things he said about releasing the tension, just to breathe in golden light and then breathe out whatever it is, if it's fear, if it's anxiety, if it's judgment, whatever it is, and you just breathe it out. And he said to do 9 breaths like that, several times a day. And whenever you feel anxious, then do it over, do 9 breaths. So he did that. But the other thing, and then he said, then ask the question. This is the question for your heart. Ask God, what's the truth in this situation? If it's with a personal relationship, if it's about what you're supposed to do after, whatever, or even what this epidemic is about, ask God, what's the truth in this situation that we need to learn? And he said, if you are open to that, you'll get it. And then work with what you get. Yeah. So that spoke to me. Heart Math spoke to me. Joe Dispenza, I love Joe. He's a new guy on the block for me. I don't have a science background, but some of the scientists right now are speaking. Greg Braden, I mentioned before, Bruce Lipton, and Joe. Those are new people in my circle, but I love their work. I love listening to them. I love reading what they have to say. So those are people that I'm paying attention to also. Yeah, and then the heart math, and then deepening presence, living for my truth rather than for my fear. Yeah.
Well, I think that you should do some online teaching, Sister Ann.
Thank you. I'll let my community know you said so, I'm sure.
I think that you have so much knowledge and so much wisdom that it is just amazing. Let me see. I think we have a couple questions. Oh, absolutely. Someone was asking about the different levels of Reiki.
Okay. And
what do the different levels mean?
Yeah, I think it was just, I think when Takata taught it, she taught it all at once. And then someone felt that people would do better if they got it in pieces. So the first level, you can do treatments on yourself, another human being. And actually, I remember Paul saying this might be all you ever need because you can do it. And the second level, they have some symbols that you're given to work with increasing the energy, mental and emotional problems, and to send it at a distance. Okay, and this is off the record because I don't know, all Reiki people wouldn't agree with me, but I think from the beginning you can send it, you can pray for somebody at a distance. Why would this be different? So you can send it, I think you can send it from the very beginning. Then the third level is if you want to teach it and pass it on to others. So you go through how you do that. But it's a very simple system that anybody can learn very simply. And and again, you don't have to do a lot of, I think God brought it on because of the need for healing, and that a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford or feel called to, spending 4 years learning to, like Don Eden's work and so forth. But you can do this with 1 class, or you can do it with 3 classes if you want to become a teacher. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple system, and lovely and beautiful and effective. So, yeah, okay. Is that helpful, or is there something else with that?
No, that was perfect. And then someone else said, can you treat a person from a distance? Yes.
Yes. The thing is to be careful that what your intention is. I mean, like I always think I know what everybody in my family needs and so forth. And it's so Reiki. I think part of the gift of Reiki for me was to let my ego grow. But I can do that when I'm working with a client much more easily than when I'm out of that energy field. And just let God do what God's going to do, so that your intention for them is the other piece. Oh my gosh, how could I forget this? Lynn McTaggart, The Power of Eight. I studied with her for a year. I did do that online, where you just make the intention, but you make it from your heart, and you just send love to the person. I'm much more just to send. If you're doing it out of love, go for it. If you're doing it out of I want this to happen for him or her, that's your ego. So it's having a loving heart. And right now, and we had 4 years ago when before the Republican convention, a sister here in Cleveland decided to invite people to come downtown and just surround the city with love. They were expecting all kinds of, terrible things to happen during the convention. And about 3,000 people went down. And I opened up our chapel, and people came there. I set it out on Tuesday, and like 200 people came. And just for a half hour surrounded the city with love. Nothing else, no other agenda, any way you do it. And we had no trouble whatsoever during the convention. The hospitals were ready to, they tried to clean him out. One doctor told me he had to stay at the hospital unless he could get there in 20 minutes by back roads. So the doctors were there. They prepared to arrest 4,000 people. They arrested about 37, and it was all minor stuff. There was no big. The bridge on which we held this, other groups had the paperwork to protest on the days during it. They never showed up. I mean, power of love is really the bottom line. And so whatever you do from love, go for it. If it's not loving, check your motivation, clear that up, and then go for the love. That would be my bottom line. And so ever since then, I've wanted to recreate that. I'm thinking, why aren't we doing this every day for every city in the world? It's just surrounded with love. So that's part of my passion right now. Just open your heart with love and just seeing what God's going to do through you. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
So
Yes.
amazing.
Lynn McTaggart, check her out. Tomorrow at noon, no, at 1 o'clock in our time. If you go online, you can find her, and she'll have a half hour, which she's going to send it to. She changed it a little bit. It was just to pray for the virus, but now she's first doing about a 10-minute one to release the fear, and then to pray for and she's asking that we, pray that the curve comes down, flattens. And you'll hear her tell you, and she's got the researchers out there, and she's got the technology to know what's happening around the world, but it's around the world. So tomorrow, if you're interested, you can check her out. It'll be at 1 o'clock. It'll be about a half hour. And we'll be praying to flatten the curve and release the fear. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. We'll make sure that we post that so everyone can see it.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It is amazing. I know John wanted to say hello too. He's here.
Hi, John.
Hi, I didn't want to interrupt you earlier.
I know. I saw you coming in. Thank you. It's so good to see both of you, all three of you, Catherine and yeah, wonderful.
Thank you for everything you've done for me and my life. And I know that you have a loss recently, and so I pray for your peace with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So we all love you. I particularly love you.
Love you too. Love you too. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming. I hope it was helpful. Okay.
So you have a comment from Michelle Denise saying, this has blessed me so much. Thank you so much. Lots of thank yous.
Thank you all. Okay. God bless.
Thank you, Sister. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ann.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So good to
This
see
was
you. Bye,
so good to
Kathy.
see you.
Bye, Kathy.
Thank you so very much, Leanne,
Yeah.
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. Let us know if there's anything we can do.
Thank you.
So Don was saying your husband has cancer he's dealing with right now.
Got good news yesterday.
Good.
There was no cancer in his bladder when they went in to look.
That's fantastic.
Good news. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
that was
you.
my husband was he was diagnosed with cancer when Catherine was 4 months old.
Oh,
And
It's
so
it's a long
So-
haul, but God bless him. He looks fine.
yeah, he is a little grumpy sometimes, and he he doesn't have great hearing from the bleomycin, and his hair got affected, but other than that, he's good.
Got a little bald spot growing, but I think that's
Yeah.
it.
That's
But
fine.
that was-
You can live with all that.
Yep, he had 2 rounds of high dose chemo and stem cell transplants. But
It's
lot
all
of-
good. It's
Yeah.
all good, and you have a beautiful daughter.
well,
Oh,
thank
thank
you. Well,
you.
we wish the best for you guys, and I hope
Thank
that
you.
that you continue to get more good news.
Thank you
Um,
very much. I hope to see you soon.
Yes, absolutely.
After all this craziness.
Thank
Stay
you
well.
very much. Bye.
Bye.